welcome to episode 2 of El Tortuga Gamescast. As always, you can find the topics for our discussion posted in the description below. This week, I'm joined once again by Cam and James.
Hello.
What's up?
Let's go ahead and jump right into the Splatoon 2 Direct that happened earlier in the week. We've been hearing a lot about Splatoon 2 and the lead up to it. It's been a slow kind of churn of information from Nintendo. We've heard a lot of good things that they're adding. We know Salmon Run is being brought to Splatoon 2, so we have a cooperative kind of horde mode for the first time.
That looks really cool. I'm looking forward to that.
Interested in that. Something different than the competitive for online with Splatoon. We've also seen that they are going to expand and make a longer campaign mode this time. A lot of people enjoyed the campaign of Splatoon 1, but we saw the main complaint was that it was too short. We could beat it in 7-8 hours pretty easily.
Wow.
So they're expanding on it this time, a lot more there. And then, of course, expanding on the online competitive aspect, which is the main attraction of Splatoon as well. So from this Direct, we got a lot of information. We saw some weapons they're going to be bringing in and some more stages and kind of general information. But I want to focus more on a couple things that I thought stood out. One of the big things from it was we saw this tease of Splatnet 2 is what they're calling it, which was our first time seeing any of Nintendo's online for the Switch, the online Nintendo network that they'll be launching for Switch that we know will eventually become something you subscribe to and pay for yearly, much like we see with Xbox Live or PS Plus on the other consoles. So we got a little sneak peek of that. We saw kind of how that will work. I thought it was pretty cool, actually, what they had to show. There's some hesitation about how Nintendo's doing this with the cell phone, and people are worried about I have to plug in a headset to my cell phone to use voice chat with my friends. You can't just plug it straight into the Switch, which kind of makes it more complicated. You think about having 2 devices that you have to use. But I'm still worried about that, but I did see some positive to this as well, with the idea that they showed cool things you can do on the phone. It works like an app outside for Splatoon 2, where, say, you're not playing the game, but you're out and you have some time on your phone. You could look up and buy weapons so that they're delivered to you when you go and sign in Splatoon 2 again. You'll have them. You can do that on your phone when you're not playing. I also saw that you can look up information on your last 50 matches and see your statistics of how well you've done. It shows you how well you perform with one weapon versus another one, so you can kind of look into that and see what maybe you're best at. So I thought that was interesting. Add some depth to Splatoon.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of game companies are doing this. I first noticed it with Blizzard, of course, back with World of Warcraft. How you could update your armory with through the Blizzard app.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really cool feature that game companies are coming up with, because you can basically, when you have downtime at work, or if you're in the car and there's something going on, don't do this while you're driving, obviously. But while you're in the car, maybe somebody else is driving, but you got something to do. You can customize your character, check in on your friends, and get the ball rolling.
Pop on non-committally and just stay tuned in.
That companion app idea we have seen before, kind of expanding on that. And they showed little hints of how it would work. They said, in a lobby, you can talk to everyone in the lobby through their voice chat, and then once you go into the game, it'll be just your team, which makes sense. A lot of games do that. So I'm hopeful. I'm still a little worried about the Nintendo Online because they've shown us through Wii and Wii U, they're a little behind when it comes to the online infrastructure and connecting you with friends. They've been very cautious, hiding it behind friend codes and not wanting you to talk to strangers and all of that, which kind of feels behind when you look at Xbox or PlayStation nowadays with how easy it is to just communicate if you want to, right? So I'm hopeful for that, but some of the stuff they showed along with it, with the Splatnet 2, I think looks interesting. I think it could add a nice layer of depth to the game, give you something to do with it when you're not at home playing. Probably the biggest news from this Direct was that they said they are going to support Splatoon with free DLC for a year, and that for 2 years they're going to have these Splatfests, which a lot of people love about Splatoon. It's where they'll give you 2 choices. For example, the first one in Splatoon 2 will be you choose, do you like ice cream or cake better? And you have to choose a team, and then you fight for the ice cream team if that's who you chose. Then in the end, it totals up all the matches and see which side won more matches and which side more people voted for, and a winner is declared. Right, so 2 years of Splatfest support, always updating those. It's a cool event when it happens. The stages, suddenly you play at nighttime instead of in the day.
So
things look different.
Did they have the Splatfest for Splatoon 1?
They did. They did. Not
Okay.
for 2 years. That's a long time of update for that. And then the big thing, I think, is the free DLC for a year.
Yeah.
Which they did have free DLC support for Splatoon 1. I think that was one of its strong points. That really kind of drew people in, because when it launched, it was so light on content. But then over time, it became, there's actually a lot here. They add maps all the time. They add new weapons, new clothes that give you different stats and things as well. So that's really cool. I know one in particular they showed off that will be coming soon after release is this umbrella weapon, which kind of gave me vibes of like Penguin from Batman. You know, it's like it's an umbrella that they could put up in front of them to deflect ink, so they couldn't get shot from the front. Then they could also shoot bursts of ink out of the umbrella as well. So kind of cool, you know, just wacky weapons that they have in Splatoon. Interested to see them adding more.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll actually like go add some like outside games to it where like maybe you can get like a Hyrule shield design kind of umbrella. You know, incorporate. That was actually one of the first things I thought of when I saw the umbrella. I'm like, oh, that's a shield. Ooh, they should tie in Zelda and get Hyrule Shield.
I would love to see that. That's one thing. I'm glad you said that because that was one thing I was sure was going to happen in Splatoon 1 with DLC. Once they were releasing new shirts, I was like, oh, it's a matter of time. We're going to see a Mario shirt.
Yeah.
Or we're going to see a Zelda shirt or a Metroid things in Splatoon because we've seen them do that in other games, right? They like to incorporate Nintendo things in other ways.
What do they call it? Cross promotion, basically.
Yeah.
Where was it?
But it never really happened in Splatoon, and I think I get that. You know, wanting this new IP that was becoming really popular for Nintendo, especially in Japan, a huge hit.
Yes.
Let it stand on its own legs. But I think now Splatoon 2, Splatoon has already shown that it can be very popular. I think it'd be cool to add some of that in, draw some more people in. I think that always works for Nintendo. People like getting hints to these other characters they know and love so much in another game. So that would be cool. I would love to see that. I'm glad you brought that up. I think the really awesome, exciting news about the Splatfest is we also know this coming Saturday, the 15th, if you're looking at Eastern Time, where we're located, from 3 to 6, a 3-hour period where you can play the first Splatfest. They're calling it the Splatfest World Premiere, obviously before the game even comes out, so it's free to download, much like their global test fires were. You can try out the game, participate in a Splatfest. Like I said, it's choosing ice cream or cake. Really tough choice there, right? But you choose a side, fight for it, and then in the end, you know, you can be rewarded if you chose the right side. So I think it's cool. Everyone's another chance to try out Splatoon 2. Definitely shows a confidence from Nintendo.
I'm definitely going ice cream.
Yeah, ice cream.
Not a tough choice for me.
You know, it's a little harder for me. I've heard it seems to be if you're trying to go with the side that's going to have more support, the rumblings are definitely ice cream might be the way to go. There's going to be more people playing on that side.
I like to hear that.
Yeah. The real debate is about ice cream cake and what does that qualify as. That's a whole other question. But overall, excited from what I've seen for Splatoon 2. I think I was already interested in Splatoon 2. This is just more details on things we saw that they're changing all of the shop owners, most of them at least, to new characters. Outside of Sheldon, the weapon guy, he's the same. But the other ones are new characters, a lot of personality behind them, where they're even changing the idols. We saw Callie and Marie are being replaced with 2 new ones.
Yeah, Pearl and
Marina.
Yeah,
Pearl and Marina, which a lot of people are excited about Marina in particular because if you're really into Splatoon, I mean, she's an Octoling. She's not a Inkling. She's not a squid. She's, you know, an Octarian technically, which are the bad guys usually. So it's kind of, we'll see what happens with that. But, you know, I thought in the first game, I thought that these idols were just kind of no big deal. And then they ended up being really important to the game. So we'll see. Could be the same here, I would assume. All right, let's move on then to our big topic, which is finishing up our part 2 of our E3 impressions and coverage. Last week, we talked about EA, Ubisoft, and Microsoft. This week, we're going to look at Bethesda, Sony, and Nintendo. So let's start off with Bethesda, possibly the one we'll spend the least time on, just on the number of announcements. But some interesting things from Bethesda this year. Skyrim everywhere, right? We saw port heavy.
So much Skyrim.
Port heavy a little bit from Bethesda in that aspect, but I think they're doing some cool things with Skyrim. Obviously, this is a bit older game now. A game with a huge legacy, incredibly popular. Still a lot of people who love Skyrim. You can spend so much time in it. We're seeing it now. They showed off how they were bringing it to the Switch, and they showed some Zelda kind of DLC, well, not really DLC, a cross promotion, where you can get some Link outfits and the Master Sword and things like that, the Hylian Shield in Skyrim. That's pretty cool. It looked a little different, a much older looking Link there in the Skyrim world.
Actually, looks a little out of sync because you're not used to seeing a character like that in the Hyrule tunic.
Yeah, a little grislier than our normal Link, but kind of cool. Definitely interesting to see that. I think it's cool they're doing something because they could have just been a straight port, but cool if we give some Nintendo fans something to be excited about. And we also saw that Skyrim is being brought to VR, PSVR, Skyrim. I mean, we talked about VR last week, where none of us are really fully in on that, but it's cool. Bethesda was definitely an example of showing support for VR. We saw Skyrim, we saw Doom VR announced as well, with a whole new experience. Not Doom, the game being running in that, just a new experience in the Doom world for VR. But again, none of us are too big on the VR part.
Yeah.
But Bethesda, worth mentioning, they showed a lot of support for that.
And obviously some people are definitely getting on the VR bandwagon. So yeah. I'm sure Skyrim and Doom will be two excellent titles for those people who are looking forward to it.
Yeah, and then I guess, surprise, surprise, from me, I'm a little more excited about the Switch version of Skyrim just because Skyrim Portable is new, right? That's a cool idea to me. With a game you can spend that much time in, it's cool to have an option to play it portable. That's a brand new thing for Skyrim. So I do find that exciting. Looking forward, hoping it runs well and everything goes well with the Switch version. Bethesda has been known in the past to have some games that are a little spotty on their performance, right? A lot of glitches and problems in the games that we'll see. Remains to be seen. So that's definitely not something you're used to seeing on a Nintendo console. We'll see how that carries over. We also saw DLC for Dishonored 2. Very well-received game last year that came out in fall last year. So some DLC, continued support for that. I think unsurprising. I did expect to see something for that as well.
Several of my friends are still playing Dishonored 2, so it's a good thing DLC's coming.
Yeah,
I'm sure they're going to hop right on that.
I think the general consensus is that Dishonored 2 was a game that was really well done, reviewed really well, but maybe didn't get played as much as it deserved. In that way, critical reception was better than the fan reception. I think just not enough copies sold. So maybe seeing it again, seeing the DLC will convince some more people to go check it out, which could be good for Dishonored. I think it's a very strong franchise, but maybe a little underappreciated.
Yeah, it has a strong future, but it's definitely not an A-list title quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it does have the future. You worry about those IPs like that.
That's true. That's true.
If they don't sell enough, they could go away. I think for me, there was two announcements from Bethesda that were the most exciting. The two big ones for me were The Evil Within 2 and Wolfenstein New Colossus, right? So two different games, but kind of both Bethesda-style games, what we expect. Now, from Evil Within 2, we saw a cinematic trailer, a tone piece again, like we like to say, but we didn't see any gameplay. What did you guys think of the cinematic trailer for Evil Within 2?
I don't know what to say, to be honest, because I was just left the whole time wondering, why is he being devoured by this white goo?
Yeah.
I didn't play Evil Within, so I don't know is there a hidden meaning in that? Do you know? Did you play Evil Within?
No.
It did remind me a lot of the Stranger Things, where
The
you're
Netflix show.
Stuck in a lot of like a different world, or whatever, being pulled in by where it's haunted memories or things like that. But it did remind me a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm not incredibly familiar with Evil Within either. That's just something that I did skip. But I thought the cinematic trailer, the reason I skipped it for me is that I'm not big into horror games. It's not my genre of choice.
I haven't been into horror games since the first Resident Evil, to be honest.
Yeah, so not my favorite genre, but I thought the cinematic trailer did a good job of showing what, the kind of tone you can expect. And I think for a lot of people, it'll be exciting. If that's the kind of game you like.
I'm looking forward to seeing the gameplay.
Yeah, that's my thing, is this one really left me a little confused on what exactly to expect from the game. This was just, like we said, a tone piece that seemed creepy, definitely.
Yeah.
He looks one way and looks back, and then there's, dead bodies hanging from the ceiling and things like that. So I'm interested to see gameplay of it, kind of holding off my judgment for now. Just cinematic trailer, again.
A little off topic. I'm starting to get a little annoyed with all these cinematic trailers. Because, you go in expecting something, but it looks nothing like the gameplay footage. And it's definitely misleading to some customers.
I do feel like a lot of companies jumped the gun a little bit on showing off a new game and end up only having cinematic stuff. And I wish that they would kind of hold it a little closer to their...
Yeah, it's interesting with this one in particular. I mean, I think the cinematic trailer thing happens in general because you want to get in on that E3 hype. And showing off something at E3, there's so much conversation. You don't want to miss that. And a lot of times we see cinematic trailers for maybe games that are really far away, like Beyond Good and Evil 2, right? Cinematic trailer to give a tone piece. People are so excited. Yeah, it's far away, but that's what they could show. And it worked well there. Evil Within 2 I find interesting because it's coming out this year in October 13th. Right? So it's not very far away. There has to be gameplay
Friday
ready.
the 13th.
Sorry.
Too, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
Friday. Yes, it is. Friday the 13th. This October. So great day to release a horror game.
That's a great release date.
Not too far away, so the game has to be pretty polished at this point.
That's why I'm a little sour that there was no gameplay footage revealed. Because it's like...
Do you think that, they'll obviously... Do you think if they release gameplay, when would they choose to do that over E3? Why not show it at E3? Kind
of the precedent they have set for Bethesda, I would actually expect to see it at QuakeCon, which I don't know the date, but it's not too far away. They do tend to use that as an opportunity to show off their other games as well.
Gotcha.
I guess I just don't feel like that's a better platform to do it than at E3.
Yeah. No, I agree. Interesting choice. I don't think it was bad overall. I think it got a lot of people excited because so many people are really into Evil Within 1, so I think a lot for their fans, they're in anyways. They're just excited to see it shown off. It's just for someone like us, who's an outsider to it, it was difficult to grasp fully.
Yeah, like, exactly, what am I going in, and how am I going to be playing this exactly?
We'll keep our eyes on
definitely.
it, and we'll see what happens there. The bigger one then, for me, the one that I was really excited about from Bethesda is Wolfenstein, the New Colossus.
That looks great.
Yeah, they showed kind of a live action trailer at first that was, couldn't tell what it was at first with the little girl and the truck being tipped over. And then they showed a long cinematic trailer, and then they showed gameplay. So this was the main focus of their conference this year. They dedicated the most time to.
Personally, I could have done without the Liesel, that beginning portion.
Oh, yeah, with the girl and stuff.
I liked it.
I didn't like it.
Reminded me of Lassie. I liked it.
It's the Bethesda thing that kind of they have that little bit weird tone. They tend to do that. I've come to expect it almost from them, but yeah, I agree. It doesn't do anything for the game. It's just, I think, for fun from them, purely.
It's just a nice little teaser kind of trailer.
Yeah, kind of get you wondering what's going on. What is this? Before they really show it. But I thought the cinematic trailer actually looked pretty cool. I liked the tone of the idea of, Nazi-run America. And you saw, Nazis hanging out with KKK members and all of this tension that I'm sure the game is going to kind of thrive in, right? And that what you're fighting against. We saw that really tense scene of the Nazi going into the bar and acting like he's playing it cool and ordering, a strawberry milkshake, and then all of a sudden turns to the screen, your character, and says, well, show me your identification, right? And the tone changes so quickly. So I found that interesting. And then I thought the gameplay looked really cool. Very intense, almost one of those kind of shooters where it's nerve-wracking almost to play. There were so many enemies running at the screen, and you have to do everything so quickly, where it's so tense you almost feel like, stressful, almost, right? But I thought the gameplay looked really cool. I mean, I've never seen a first-person shooter before where the first part of the footage was him fighting from a wheelchair, right? Rolling around and then shooting, so different. Interesting, I think, for sure.
Wolfenstein is definitely always good at getting your blood pumping.
Yeah, it seems very high octane, a lot like Doom in that way, right? Where it's fast-paced action shooting, puts very powerful weapons in your hands and kind of lets you go to town. So I think that looks exciting. Some of the other characters they showed off looked cool. I liked that. You mentioned that kind of Captain America scene where he jumps on the grenade that's actually a dud.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of testing his character. So that was cool, too. I think there's some exciting things there from Wolfenstein. That is this year as well. That is October 27th that releases, which seems like a good release date until I think about it a little more and realize that's a very big day for games. That's the same day we're getting Assassin's Creed Origins.
That's right.
And it's the same day we're getting Mario Odyssey.
I always worry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw the effects that could have on a game. Like, what was it? A little over a year ago, we saw Tomb Raider and Fallout 4 come out on the same day, and everyone was talking about how Tomb Raider just got overrun.
Yeah.
Right? Because everyone was talking about Fallout.
The same with the game that came out around the same. I don't even remember the title of the game that came out right around Breath of the Wild.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yes, that would be it.
Yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn, I think, critically great reception, but it was overshadowed. I mean, people were excited about it, don't get me wrong, but when you looked at video game press sites and things, they were talking about Zelda for the next couple of weeks, and I think that definitely caused them to talk about Horizon less.
The size of Zelda alone made it just a game that you could talk about for longer. So I think that really took kind of the wind out of people's sails.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to compete. You can only focus on so much. So I think, as much as I think Wolfenstein looks awesome, I can't sit here and say that on October 27th, that's the first game I'm going to be excited to pop into my console that day. I do think it's something I'll pick up, but it might be a delayed pickup because, unfortunately,
you can only play so many games at once.
I'm more excited for both Mario and Assassin's Creed, if I'm being honest. The setting of Assassin's Creed really sells me, the historical setting, and then, Mario.
It's Mario.
Yeah, and how good that looks, which we'll get to soon. But so, I think it looks great. I don't know about the release date. I mean, we've seen Bethesda on the positive side of that before, where Fallout outshined Tomb Raider. But now I think they might be a little bit too busy of a day. I wouldn't think it was a bad idea. Maybe when we get closer, say, hey, let's push this one back a month or just something different.
Yeah,
just a different day, even 2 weeks, just so it's not the same day. Exactly. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe they're betting on people are going to be at the store and they're Christmas shopping, and maybe they'll just pick out all these new releases.
I'm wondering if that's their plan. With a lot of these games, obviously, is they'll just get the holiday shoppers. The parents go in there, buy 4 or 5 games for their kids, or buy 4 or 5.
Yeah, or I mean, really, I guess the idea has got to be have your games out before Black Friday, right?
Yeah,
so it's out, and the end of October, it's out.
And
it's
then
there.
have it out, and then have an opportunity to restock.
Yeah. So I think it'll be fine in the end. I don't think they expect this game to outsell some of those other franchises anyways. I think it'll do just fine, but a tough day to release nonetheless. Let's move on then from Bethesda, I think, to Sony. Let's look at Sony next. And Sony had several big games to show at this E3. My main criticism just kind of about Sony before we dive in is most of what they showed we've already seen before, right? When you look at their big games, Days Gone, God of War, Uncharted Lost Legacy, we've already seen gameplay of these games last year at E3. So not too many brand new announcements to really shock you, but that doesn't mean what they showed wasn't really solid. I think there's a lot of great content that they showed. Let's start out with Uncharted Lost Legacy, just because it does release so soon. This is, a lot of people were looking at it as DLC for the most recent Uncharted 4, but it's not just that. And Naughty Dog is pushing that this is a standalone experience. You can buy it at the store on its own. You don't have to own Uncharted 4, right? Nathan Drake is not your main character here. Chloe from Uncharted is actually going to be the main character who you play as. And they said it's a shorter experience, expecting, I think, around 10 hours or so. Mm-hmm. But that same amazing graphic quality from Uncharted games, I'm pretty sure the price is $40 on this instead of $60. So
awesome.
It's a smaller package to get, but you're still going to get, I think, a great solid story. Early gameplay they've shown looks really interesting.
Franchises, movie and game alike, are doing that, where they're taking main characters and doing more side stories. That Star Wars doing it. I like that. It gives you more than just the main character, because you can get a little tired with the main character, but it gives you all these side stories that help you get really, really engaged in the franchise.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to change the playable character. There's that big question with the way Uncharted 4 ended. Is this the end of Uncharted? Which Naughty Dog's kind of said, no, it's not. Nathan Drake's story is going to continue, but nice to see them go in a different direction, right? Rather than just more Nathan Drake. I think it's more exciting. Although it's not DLC exclusively, I mean, you can buy it like that as well. So I think it's good to see a game that you can buy and enjoy that's just not Nathan Drake, changing it up the formula a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's no way
content.
Uncharted's going away though.
No.
They just announced the movie too.
Huge franchise for Sony, no doubt. I mean, probably their biggest now. That and The Last of Us are their biggest franchises, I would argue, both from Naughty Dog. But cool to see the different character. I'm glad. I think that's more exciting than if they were just telling me, hey, here's another 10-hour story where it looks just like Uncharted 4. It's Uncharted 4's engine and you're doing a different thing as Nathan Drake. Not as exciting as here playing as a different character. Right? Mm-hmm. I think that's a little more interesting. So I am excited about that. Moving on from Uncharted then, let's go to Days Gone from Sony. Now, this showed last year to kind of lukewarm reception, I think. When they showed it off, I think people were kind of like, this is just another zombie game. This looks a lot like The Last of Us. People are kind of confused on what's going to happen with this game. What were your thoughts on what they showed this year?
I'm still lukewarm for me. It definitely, watching it again, it felt a lot like you're playing a Walking Dead game as Daryl Dixon. And I just don't know how I feel about that. I feel like it's really heavy on the zombie games right now. I feel... another thing is the title of this game reminds me so much of the very first episode of Walking Dead, where it's Days Gone By, and it just, so much of it being that it's like you're playing like Daryl Dixon. He's wearing a leather jacket, he's riding around on a motorcycle.
It does remind you.
It's really similar. It feels, and not to take credit away from any person that worked on this game, but it feels a little stolen.
Okay.
In terms of similar content to a show that's very popular and it's been going on for a while, and that was originally a comic book, and or that still is a comic book, and a lot of other zombie games that are happening right now. I mean, it does look interesting that you can take your area and make zombies attack other areas, that you can use your environment like that. That's really interesting, but the actual story itself, I'm still a little lukewarm on. Yeah, some of the gameplay was cool. They did show using their zombies or freakers, right, as a tool, right? He kind of made that explosion on the fence and had them take out the base. Yeah. I think that's interesting. I do agree that some of it just kind of seems like retreaded territory. I mean, hiding in the bushes and planting traps and sneaking up on people, it feels very Assassin's Creed or every other stealth action game we've seen recently, right? That's a very common style now. And, that's not fair to say that discredits this game completely. There's plenty of games have done that. I think it can be interesting. Still kind of hopeful for it, but I agree. It does not feel new. And this is a new IP
from Sony,
Yes.
right? And so you kind of wish for a little more exciting from a new IP. What could be the possibilities? This one, I don't know if I wonder about the possibilities.
It's just hard with stuff like The Last of Us and other stuff like that has this similar desolate scene. The story behind The Last of Us was so gripping. So many other zombie games are so good. It's just hard.
The Last of Us, I mean, one of the strongest
so many
video game
pieces.
stories, I think, in video game history, right? It's told so well. Really, that's what kept you going in that game. For me, was the main thing was this story. I want to know what happens. It's hard for Sony then to put out another IP that's a zombie apocalypse. Like, how do you live up to that story-wise? I feel like that's a huge bar they've set. What it's going to be compared to no matter what.
Yeah.
So it's a tough way to start for them. And I think there's going to be differences. They've really focused on how many zombies they can have on screen at once. And those kind of technical aspects to this game look really cool beyond what The Last of Us did. But it's going to be compared to it. It's that desolate zombie situation, a lot of wilderness and things being shown. It's a tough comparison.
When you start to break it apart, it just really feels like a patchwork of a bunch of different games, shows, ideas that have already been put in place.
Yeah.
In other.
And not to mention, we still don't have a date on this one. They haven't said when it's coming out, so that would lead me to think not this year. Right? It's going to be pushed back even further. And then we've already seen some teases for The Last of Us 2. I really would think they'd want to be separated from that as much as possible. I hope it doesn't end up being, only a year apart. We'll see. Remains to be seen. But I think a little wish-washy on it overall still. There's potential. It looks like a very high-quality game. Don't want to take away from it there. It just looks, like you said, retreaded gameplay, retreaded ideas overall.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely just kind of blends in with some of the other titles like this.
Yeah. Next, let's look at God of War, which Sony showed off a lot more of this year. Again, this is something that was shown last year. Last year we saw an extended gameplay demo of God of War, a long clip of continuous gameplay, which was really cool. This year, coming back with God of War, something I was really excited to see. They showed a little bit more of kind of your story, more your traditional trailer. There was clips of gameplay in there, but kind of setting the scene a lot more for God of War. This one, I thought this looked very impressive.
Looks great.
Yeah. Changing up God of War. It's still going to be your action-y kind of hack and slash game, but the camera angle is very different than the older ones. Kind of modernizing, I think, in a lot of ways. Taking a cue again, as Sony has with a lot of its franchises, I think, from Uncharted and The Last of Us, kind of that perspective on the character, adding a lot more depth to the story. We see that Kratos is dealing with the idea of protecting his child in this game. And then also, but he's Kratos. He's, this incredibly angry God of War, and dealing with his frustration when his kid maybe falls short of expectations and things like that. He expects him to be a man already, right?
Yeah.
So we see a lot of those tones in it. We see these Norse gods and things that he's dealing with. Looks really cool. I mean, the combat, he's throwing his axe around almost like a Thor hammer, right, where it comes back to him after he throws it, and he's bashing enemies' heads in, cutting them through them and stuff. I think it looks very cool overall for God of War. I thought it was a very strong showing for it. One of the best things that Sony showed off this year. What did you guys think from God of War?
I thought it looked amazing. I thought it looked really fun. I thought it looked very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It just
visceral, right? When he's hitting those guys, you can feel it.
Yes,
and that's cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed what I had to see this year of it.
Yeah.
I'm liking the change of pace from Greek to Norse mythology.
Yeah.
So that should breathe some fresh air, some fresh blood into the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
But God of War always looks very visually.
It does.
Enticing,
Yeah.
So definitely looking forward.
It is a game that shows well. Certainly,
Yes,
I agree with that.
And the cinematics always play out really well. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
I love the trailers for it.
I think it's a great direction for them to go.
When is this coming out again?
No official release date, just 2018.
Yeah.
Early, late, mid.
I don't
Not
think
sure
they
about that.
28,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Sony doesn't tend to give as much of that
often.
But I think it looks really strong. I think it's a great direction for God of War to go in that it's much more cinematic, right? A story to be told here. With other ones, they have their story, but you can tell they're diving deeper into that. And I think it's a good direction. That's what a lot of people want from these big AAA games now. And that just gives it a lot more depth, right? It's still going to be your action and fighting, but there's just more there, I think, to keep you intrigued. And why are you going through this? You want to know the story. It looks a little more well-rounded.
It's always an opportunity to be more invested in the character, which will ultimately bring people back, game after game after game.
And it's, there were some hints to the things he's done in the past in the trailer, right? They, you can't escape who you are kind of idea with the pottery and things. But I think it's definitely, they're doing a good job of positioning this as, if you've never played God of War before, you can start here. That's pretty clear. They're going to give you enough information to understand and pick up new with God of War, which I think is great. Very smart from them, right? Just, this is God of War, right? They're not talking about, this is God of War, whatever subtitles. They're just calling it God of War, which I think is very smart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
A reboot,
it's
refresh.
always good when games do that because some people always feel compelled. Well, am I missing out on story mode? Do I need to go back?
Yeah,
start
I don't
from the
want to start
beginning?
on this one. I don't want to
Yeah.
play this one. I didn't play the previous.
Yeah, I think they're doing a very good job positioning it as it's good to start here. Totally fine if you need to. But again, for people returning to God of War, looks very exciting as well. So I think they've done a good job showing this game off. I hope, like you were saying, I hope it's an earlier next year type game. It could end up being a fall game next year. It would be big enough to be, I think, but I would start to
I want
worry.
see it again at E3.
Right.
I want it to be out.
If it comes
before
around to
that.
E3 again next year would really just have to be kind of like a trailer and like, hey, this is coming out soon with
3
a date.
E3s in a row.
That starts to be a problem, but we've
Maybe
seen that
that's
before.
What 3 stands on.
Who knows? Then the final thing from Sony that they showed off this year was SpiderMan, right? And I think this showed
That was the highlight of
really
Sony's
well.
conference.
Yeah, I mean,
Definitely.
I remember saying, honestly, there were a couple moments during Sony's conference, again, during VR and some of these other announcements that we've heard again and again, where it was a little bit of a slog. And then when they got to Spider-Man, for me, it was, okay, this is exciting. This is like a game changer for
Yes.
this is their mic drop moment. This was cool to see. Now, it was announced before.
Oh yeah, and
we know-
there's been leaked footage
Some
already.
things here and there, and we
Released
know
footage, not leaked necessarily. but-
Yeah, for me, I'm very excited that this is Insomniac Games, a developer which I love. I talked about them last week because I played Ratchet and Clank, which was theirs. I played Sunset Overdrive, which playing that game gives me so much confidence. In Sunset Overdrive, you're running around, jumping through the city, bouncing off buildings.
So smooth.
Yes, and if you can bring Spider-Man to that level of smooth
That's what he
gameplay and
needs to be.
exploration,
That's
it's
his
perfect.
That's his whole
Yeah.
shtick, is that he can glide around, he can fly. You know, what he's doing feels like flying. And if they did it so well with Sunset Overdrive, then you have confidence that they'll be able to replicate the same feeling of weightlessness.
It's the perfect feeling for Spider-Man. So I think they've proven they can make this kind of game already. So I'm just so excited to see what they do with Spider-Man. Now, we got to see some gameplay from this, a long clip of gameplay.
Yeah, there was like, a good 10-15 minutes of gameplay
pretty long.
footage.
Yeah, and
And it looked really good.
Yeah, I mean,
the way Spider-Man can interact with his environment.
Visually, yeah.
just use this, throw vehicles, throw metal beams out.
It did a good job
I really
capturing
like
the superhero aspect to
Definitely.
it. No doubt about it. For me, it reminded me so much in the encounter where he was fighting the enemies and things and sneaking up on them of the Batman Arkham games.
Arkham series, right?
Which,
Yes.
that is not a knock in any way. That is a great
Yeah,
thing.
it's a great game to be compared to.
Fantastic games.
Great game to be compared to.
For me, no doubt about it, those are the best superhero games we've seen, period. Just feeling like a superhero, really executing these things and having your own spin on it was perfect for Batman. I think it works really well for Spider-Man as well. We saw hints of the spider sense as something you can use in battle and then kind of, get your way out of it with a quick time event, which I know some people were kind of complaining about that, on that topic, that the trailer showed a lot of quick time events, like he's going through something really cool and cinematic looking, and then you see on the screen, like, press L2 or X, and, to make him interact. And then those have a negative connotation in gaming, too many quick time events, because people, I don't think, want games that just feel like all quick time events where you're just watching a movie and pressing buttons every once in a while.
Yeah.
And I get that. So I understand the reception to it, but I'm not too worried about Spider-Man. I think they showed in that other part that reminded me of Batman, that Predator kind of gameplay of him sneaking around on the guardrails and fighting and jumping down and executing, using abilities. That was gameplay, just straight up, right? They showed that this game is going to have that, but I think if you're going to make a superhero video game, you need to have some cinematic moments that show these amazing stunts by Spider-Man falling through the air with that helicopter and things like
Definitely.
that. And you can't do that as smooth gameplay without either just a cutscene or a QuickTime event, right?
Yeah.
So the QuickTime event lets them incorporate it more into gameplay. So I think it's fine as long as they don't overdo it. And like I said, I do feel good about it. I know Insomniac, I've seen the games they played, always feel like their games are very strong, like their games a lot. So I'm not too worried about it. I think they know. I don't think they're going to overload this with QuickTime events. And that's kind of what they said when people questioned them about it. Like, no, don't worry. This is an open world game. You're going to be able to do what you want. But of course, there's going to be moments of cinematic nature like that. And I mean, at E3, I feel like, of course, you're going to show one of those off, right? It's amazing to see on screen. It was exciting. So I think it's just a choice to show that kind of section. I don't think that's indicative of that whole game is going to be like this.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm
Very
kind
excited for
of
it.
bummed there's no release date yet, though.
Right.
It's still just, I think, for 2018, right? Not going
Yeah.
to be 2017. I was hoping they were going to capitalize on the new Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
Try to release it this year, but I'm guessing 2018 is where it's going to be released.
I would think so. Sony's kind of shown the past couple of years, it goes against traditional gaming mindset, I think, where you expect, hey, it's fall. What's the big games coming out? Sony, the last couple of years, basically says the big games are the third-party games, Call of Duty and Battlefield, and they don't put their games up against them.
those are really, people that play Call of Duty are gonna buy the new game.
Certainly.
Those are strong holiday.
And
games to
Sony
have.
has been doing a lot more, putting their games out in that Q1, Q2, summertime, early in the year. Put their big games out then, let them shine when not as much is coming out. And then in the fall, they kind of let the third parties carry the load. And I don't know if that's a bad idea. It's kind of smart, right, in the end. So, but I think that's what it is. We saw that last year, and, people were like, Sony has nothing. This is such a weak fall from them. And then, again,
I agree.
this year...
And the holidays do get a little clogged
Yeah.
with stuff, and it's difficult to catch up or maybe give some games their due.
Yeah, so maybe smart in the end. I do have to say, Spider-Man in general, super exciting to me because when I think about it, even from my childhood, for some reason his powers have always just connected with me where I think it would be so fun to have those powers, the wall climbing and the web slinging and the agility and the spider sense. Just sounds great for a video game. I thought this game, the coolest thing was just watching Spider-Man move around. He looked like Spider-Man, hunched over, crawling around, the acrobatic movement, exactly what I would want it to look like. So very fluid, felt just like Spider-Man through and through. I think it was a very strong showing. So I'm absolutely looking forward to it, even more so after just seeing the new Spider-Man movie. It just kind of got me more excited to play as Spider-Man.
Right?
Yeah, so absolutely can't wait for this. I thought this was an incredibly strong showing. One of the best games of E3 showing-wise for me this year. Spider-Man, certainly. For me, the most exciting part of Sony's conference.
No, definitely the highlight of Sony's conference for me as well.
Yeah.
And like you said, Spider-Man definitely has always been one of my go-to Marvel... any actually DC and Marvel heroes. I grew up in the 90s watching the cartoon.
Yeah.
Definitely, and I actually got vibes from the cartoon watching some of that, watching Spider-Man.
I mean, you heard some of his kind of quips and stuff. The normal Spider-Man persona, it looks great. So, looking forward to that one.
Watching that interaction with the Kingpin, Wilson Fisk.
Yeah.
Yep, that reminded me of the cartoon as well.
So, looks great. Cannot wait to see more on Spider-Man. And finally, let's move on to Nintendo's E3 announcements from this year. We had the Nintendo Spotlight, which is like their Nintendo Direct, where they focused exclusively on Switch announcements. And then we saw the Nintendo Treehouse, which they do days of streaming from E3, showing off a lot of the games they talked about in their Direct. And then also some more announcements kind of sprinkled in there as well. So let's look first at Nintendo. I think let's get out of the way. 2 big announcements. But they were just that, announcements, right?
Yeah, just little teases, just to get wet your beak.
Basically, and
get you hyped.
And even calling it a tease is almost a stretch, right? It's it's a confirmation.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Pokemon is really just a Twitter announcement, technically,
Definitely
right?
a call for the fans to settle down.
Yeah. So first we saw Pokemon, where in the Nintendo Direct they went to footage of a producer on the Pokemon series, and he basically said, hey, the other day we announced Pokken Tournament is coming to Switch. Hope you're excited about that kind of thing. And then said, also, just so you know, we're working on a Pokemon game for Switch. It might be a little more than a year away. Which, I mean, if you think about it from E3, that could set it up for fall next year, which would be huge. Again, just an announcement. Very exciting for a lot of people. And then next, probably the biggest hype moment from Nintendo's entire conference was at one point, the music kind of sets in and there's this foggy image and then it says Metroid Prime 4.
Yep.
As it settles in and people lost their minds.
Got goosebumps.
Yeah, very exciting. This was one of those things that I think for so long, every Nintendo Direct that comes out, I see people like, where's Metroid? Where's Metroid? Or they're going to announce Metroid, I'm sure. This is the time. Metroid's going to be there, right? And for so long, there was nothing on Metroid, right? And now finally, a Metroid announcement, because Metroid really did skip Wii U completely.
Yeah, and that shocked a lot of people.
Yeah, people really, I mean, a beloved franchise, not as high selling as a lot of Nintendo's other franchises. So I think that's why it's been a while. But
yeah, but it's more than a cult classic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Metroid Prime, in particular, the Prime series, beloved as well.
Yep.
Right, so Metroid Prime 4, a huge announcement, but again, that's all it was. I actually thought it was really funny. I saw footage of people's reaction because they showed the Metroid Prime 4 logo and they said now in development for Switch, and then they went directly to their little cutscene kind of thing where it said first look, right? And it showed like in the Nintendo Switch kind of footage in the first look and like the little spotlight going around, and everyone was like, I saw from the Nintendo store in New York, everyone was freaking out like, hey, quiet, we're about to see the Metroid Prime 4 footage, and then it cuts to the Yoshi, and you could see like everyone's faces like, oh. Which, not to hit on Yoshi, but it's funny how they set that up. Like, okay. But let's just look at those 2 announcements then. Huge announcements. I mean, talk about Pokemon. Nintendo's probably biggest franchise, right? That and Mario Kart are like their big things when you look at sales numbers. So that being announced for the Switch is huge. I mean, he said a mainline Pokemon RPG for Switch. That has never really happened before.
Right.
Their mainline RPGs have always been on the handhelds, which
Definitely.
now, obviously, the argument is, well, Switch is a handheld, right? It can be. It's a hybrid. But still, Nintendo considers it their console. So I was still a little on the fence. Is Pokemon going to come to this, or are they going to say, hey, the next one's coming out to 3DS again? So this was a huge announcement. I think a critical announcement solely because when Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were announced, just a week or two before E3, the backlash was huge. As to which it was, why is this not also on Switch at least, or not? I mean, some people wanted it to only be on Switch. Some people said it can be on 3DS, but should also be on Switch. A lot of people very upset about that. So I think having this announcement in the Direct just simply says, hey, don't panic. Pokemon is going to come to the Switch. We're making a brand new Pokemon generation for Switch. That's exactly what I think anyone would want. So now I think people can calm down and enjoy Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon without being worried about Switch. And know that that's coming in the future as well. I think that was perfect for Nintendo as a tone piece of, hey, more Pokemon for 3DS is good because Switch is coming anyways.
But I think they're setting up the Switch for success. Because obviously the demand's already high. Zelda, huge hit.
Early demand has been great.
But, when you add a Pokemon and a Metroid Prime title, you're going to get a lot more hype than just your Marios and your Zelda.
Just expanding on it. I think this first year for Switch is incredibly strong from first party. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I completely agree. If you want to talk about Nintendo struggles with third party support, that's a valid complaint. But this first year, first party support for the Switch is incredibly strong. I mean, we're talking about Zelda, we see ARMS, we see Splatoon 2, we're going to see Mario. It's just a lot for 1 year.
And let's just be honest, though.
Xenoblade 2 as well.
When you buy a Nintendo console, you're buying it for the Nintendo exclusives.
That has become the case.
It's a huge draw for most Nintendo console buyers. You want those Nintendo titles. And that's one reason why Wii U was not a success, because it did not have that first-party support that, like, the Wii and the GameCube.
It slowed down.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it was strong for a little while. I think some of their games got delayed. Nintendo lamented, we weren't really quite ready to develop in HD. It slowed some things down. Like we saw Pikmin get delayed. Pikmin 3 was delayed a lot later than they had hoped. But I think the last year and a half, 2 years of Wii U was very slow because I think everything they were working on, they switched it to Switch. I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah, they definitely made the decision, all right, let's focus our attention on Switch.
So, the strong first year is great, but these games, these announcements, they show that it's going to continue, I think. And that's great for Nintendo. I kind of said why I thought Pokemon was announced. Metroid, I think, ends up being a very similar situation as to why it was announced. Now, we didn't know it at the time. Everyone, I think, was just so excited after the Direct to say, hey, we got a Metroid announcement. It's coming to Switch. Metroid Prime, exactly what most people wanted. And then, during the Treehouse a little bit later, we saw Metroid Samus Returns announced, which is a remake, kind of a complete redoing of Metroid 2 for 3DS, being handled by the studio that made the Castlevania game for 3DS. And they showed some cool things, completely done 3D visuals. They showed Samus has this new counterattack where it can melee enemies and stun them and then shoot them really quickly. Looks awesome, and early impressions have been very solid for how the game plays. I'm really excited about that. But then when you think about it, I think that confirming Metroid Prime for Switch was essential then, because the outrage, if you think about the outrage to, hey, the new Pokemon is coming to 3DS and not Switch, I think the outrage to the new Metroid is coming to 3DS and not Switch would have been even worse.
Absolutely.
Because that's your hardcore Nintendo fans that want Metroid. And I think it would have been like a slap in the face of, hey, we made a new Metroid finally, you've been asking forever, here you go on the 3DS. And not to hate on the 3DS, I love it, but, people want these big things to hit Switch. So I think it was incredibly important to show that, hey, it is coming to Switch. Don't worry, it's in development. That's why they had such a basic announcement. No cinematic trailer, just a logo, no gameplay, nothing. It could be a while off, right? And they said it's being developed by a new team at Nintendo. I think it's great. But who knows, right? The 3DS announcement looks really cool. That's coming soon in September. So I think that's really exciting. We're going to have Metroid soon. And now, again, people can just calm down and enjoy Metroid on 3DS because it's also going to be hitting Switch eventually, right? They're working on it, so it's coming. Don't have to freak out and say this should have been on Switch. I'm sure some people still will, but I think for most fans, it's going to be on Switch. Now here's some Metroid for 3DS as well. I mean, the drought for Metroid was so long, and now all of a sudden, 2 Metroid games on their way. That's great. I mean, I think that's really what kind of blew the doors off for me. Well, Metroid Prime being announced, incredibly exciting. Knowing there's 2 Metroid games, It's like you're going to get your Metroid fill for real now. So I'm excited
They're
about that.
Definitely listening to their
Yeah,
fans.
you're going to get your 3D Metroid and Metroid Prime and your 2D in Samus Returns. So that's very exciting in that aspect. Then we saw some other announcements from Nintendo as well. Let's go, while we're talking about things maybe a little bit in the distance, right? We saw 2 other games confirmed for 2018, which were just titled Kirby and Yoshi for right now. Clearly we haven't gotten the full titles yet, but both of them, they said 2018. They showed gameplay, so they are pretty far along on these ones. Let's start with Kirby. We saw it's a 2D platformer, more your traditional style Kirby, right? But we did see that it's multiplayer. They showed up to 4 people playing at once, where he was kind of, rather than sucking up an enemy and taking their power, he was like throwing a heart at them,
and
like charming them,
right?
and then they were on his team, and then someone else can play as them. So cool. That's better than some of the other multiplayer Kirby games I've seen, where your other people get stuck just playing a generic character with 1 power, maybe Meta Knight with a sword, which is cool at first, but then you're going to get jealous of player 1 who's like, I can take any power and level and be everything, right? Where now it seems like, well, Kirby can charm a different character and you can play as that as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's a smarter idea for Kirby.
Definitely looks fun.
Yeah.
I like the co-op ability for sure.
The co-op thing looks cool. They showed them kind of rolling like a wheel, all holding onto each other down the hill and like taking out enemies.
That definitely stood out to me from the trailer.
Yeah, that was a cool moment. I thought the game looked really pretty. HD, the best that Kirby's looked, so that was exciting for me as well. I'm looking forward to that. Kirby games a little bit more casual, laid back in their style as a platformer. Never too difficult, I don't think. But especially knowing that it's multiplayer, something we can play together.
Exactly.
That's what gets me excited about that one.
Because I feel like there's a a lot of people are doing away with the couch co-op option, and I do like that Nintendo is steadily always including that option in their games.
They've remained very strong with that throughout Wii U and now into Switch. I love that. Finally, because, most consoles you see a lot of, hey, this is an online shooter that you play by yourself.
They've replaced it with online or online multiplayer. Where you can play with other, but they've seemed to replace the couch co-op option with everybody has to buy their own game.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's multiplayer, but only 1 per console.
Exactly.
Or it's a single-player story experience. Not as much co-op anymore. Nintendo's kind of the last bastion of real supporter for that. So it's awesome to see. Same story goes for Yoshi. Again, just that's all they said so far. Yoshi for Switch, which they showed off multiplayer again, at least 2 players in that. I really liked what we saw from the treehouse on this one. It's continuing with that Yarn Yoshi kind of aesthetic where it's all crafted.
Exactly, where you can see the texture.
And everything around Yoshi is like made out very clearly out of like a cardboard box. Like the houses and the levels are
that purple cardboard box dragon.
Yeah, boss. The boss they showed.
Yeah,
that was so
really
cool.
Yeah. It reminded me a lot of the Paint Splash.
Color Splash.
Color Splash.
Yeah.
Thank you. Where the cardboard, like there's
absolutely
kind of moves.
The Paper Mario.
You can roll up, yeah.
So merging Paper Mario with Yarn Yoshi, I think somewhere in between those is like Craft World now, and I think that's pretty cool. Like your mom's scrapbooking closet
exactly.
full of
things.
It
looks so much like something that you could create on your own by yourself, and you've made this little world, and now it's come to life. And Yoshi's jumping around in it, but it's very much like an imagination come to life.
Yeah, and it's a 2D game, but not fully. I thought the trailer kind of threw me off. I saw Yoshi throw an egg into the background, so there's depth to the level, and I was like, okay, it's not just straight 2D like most Yoshi's Island or Yarn Yoshi was. It's something a little different. And then in the treehouse, they showed that they said there's 2 sides to every story or every stage, and they played through one way, and you would see a house with these blocks that were jetting out from it and then disappearing and jetting out and disappearing as platforms that Yoshi could jump on to make it to the next part. And that's always in Mario games. It's just the other moving platforms.
Yeah.
And then he played the backside and goes behind the house, and you see little Shy Guys holding onto like a rope on the back of the thing, dragging it out, pushing it in, and Yoshi can eat them, and then it stops moving.
So much personality.
Yeah.
So much fun, quirkiness.
Definitely came across as charming. I think that's what Yarn Yoshi was able to do. I think that's what this looks like it's going to do as well. So I thought that was cool. Looks really charming. Again, pretty looking multiplayer game, 2018. So we've known in the future Nintendo's got Pokemon coming. They've got Metroid coming, which is more of a hardcore series. And then we've got, I think Kirby and Yoshi for more your casual, kind of just fun experience, co-op experience.
Just laid-back platformers that I personally love. So
they make sense. Those are probably, when you think logically, shorter production games, the Yoshi and Kirby, than some of these huge franchises. So that to get them out early in the Switch's life cycle, smart. Right, going to fill up the catalog very nicely. That gives us some more hope for what's going to come next year. We did see a couple other big games for Switch coming this year. We saw, first, let's look at Fire Emblem Warriors. Right, we saw the trailer for that, showing off some of the heroes. Now, very comparable to Hyrule Warriors, which we saw on the Wii U and the 3DS.
Yeah.
Which was this Warrior series, which is, if you don't know, huge battlefields with a ton of enemies. A lot of them kind of feel brainless, and you just kind of chop through them and do huge moves that take out, your
Just
sword
hack and
swipes.
slash.
Your sword swipes take out hundreds of enemies at once if you do it right. But then there are bosses who are the real threat. So you just kind of cut through the grunts and then make it to a boss. It's fun in that way. It's just very action-packed, continuous. I enjoyed Hyrule Warriors way more than I expected to. And, it was the aspect of, well, you start out as Link, and then later you get to play as Impa, then you're playing as a Goron, and it was just fun to try out all the different moves and go through the campaign as the story was interesting enough for me. I had a lot more fun with it than I expected. I'm a huge Fire Emblem fan, so I'm excited about Fire Emblem Warriors. They showed some cool things here. We saw heroes that are on horseback fighting, which I haven't seen in this franchise before, and looked like it played very differently. There's some sword users, as you would expect from Fire Emblem. They're big characters, right? But then they're talking about how there's going to be the other kind of characters.
Yeah, we didn't see like the mage class, did we?
Not really. Yeah, we saw like the hybrid and Corrin, but that's about
Gotcha.
it. But they've talked about how that's going to come, and they've talked about how we're going to get those and axe users and other things as well. So I think that's all stuff to look forward to. I'm sure it'll be a pretty big cast. They love to do that in these Warriors. There's lots of characters you can play, and then I'm sure they're going to add DLC for even more later, right? Here's 3 more characters if you want to pay a little more.
Buy the season pass.
Yeah, but I thought the gameplay looked cool. I like the art style of it. I'm excited about that one. They have just said fall this year for this one, so this is coming as well. I wouldn't be surprised if it's maybe their latest, like maybe their November game this year, something that comes out at the very tail end of the year. But we'll see on that. Then the other big one that they've confirmed for this year kind of surprised me, and I think surprised a lot of people because everyone thought this game is going to get delayed. Earlier on, Nintendo confirmed it as a this year game, and everyone said, no, Xenoblade 2 is going to get delayed. It's going to get pushed back to 2018. A lot of people had heard that again and again, but Nintendo came out, showed a new trailer for Xenoblade with some gameplay as well, with Xenoblade 2, and then they said 2017.
Great.
Right? Yeah, so again, they're sticking to that. It seems like that's going to happen. Which for me, I thought maybe it'll happen in Japan this year, but probably not the United States. They're saying it is, so I think that's exciting. This one, we saw a different look for Xenoblade, a much more anime-style graphics, but sticking to the Xenoblade style, I think, in the gameplay that we saw, the combat.
The one for the Wii U had a lot of, like, a huge mech aspect to it, right? This one didn't appear to have that. So
No, this is
going
more...
back to more the classic,
as it's Xenoblade
right?
2, it's more your sequel to Xenoblade 1, which was Shulk on Wii. So I don't think as much of that. It's more about this magical sword and things like that. Kind of like that one was. So a little bit different. They talked about how it's less open world than the Wii U Xenoblade, but more of a story focused. Still, there is an open world aspect to it, but not just as vast and like do what you want. It's more story driven.
That's nice that they're changing it up.
Yeah. Going back to that again, I think
Has
is
this
cool.
Elysium planet, has that come up in this series before?
The idea has been there before.
Okay.
Yeah. But this one, going there as a target thing, a little bit different.
Gotcha.
I think. But I'm excited about that. I'm looking forward to Xenoblade 2. I'm a little kind of in between on the graphics right now. They talked about how this style is going to let them be more expressive in the characters' faces and things, which I agree with. I'm not against the cel-shaded style. I love Wind Waker. I think is an incredibly beautiful game. I've loved that always with Zelda. I think a lot of the cel-shaded games, Persona 5 is really cool in the way that it does that. But this one, I just think it looks okay graphically right now. It remains to be seen in action what it looks like and things. I don't think that's vastly important for how big of a game this is going to be. You don't expect it to be the most stunning, but I'm a little in between on the graphics for it from what they've shown.
I was hoping it was going to be more like Bayonetta's graphics.
Yeah, it could be.
But
Xenoblade on Wii U had a more realistic look too,
yes,
and this is going away from that. Remains to be seen. I want to see it in action before I decide on it completely. But it's definitely different. And then, before we get to the big, mic drop moment again for Nintendo, I do want to mention during the Treehouse Live as well, they showed off another 3DS game, which kind of caught my eye, really starting with the title. This was Sushi Striker Way of Sushido.
That is the cutest title.
Yeah,
I love the alliteration.
Yeah, very cool. A crazy game coming out to 3DS. As far as I remember, 2018. Nothing more concrete than that right now. But this is basically you compete in battles of like matching up sushi on the same colored plates as quickly as you can. So kind of like one of those quick going match titles that you see very popular on mobile phones and things like that. But the aesthetic to it, if it's like a battle where you fill up the matches you make, it forces your opponent to eat them on the top screen. So you're tapping on the bottom screen, they're eating all these huge plates of sushi, and you try to like fill them up and knock them out first. So like a drinking game with like how much can you handle? You got to beat them in a race. I thought the style of it and things just looked really cool. I was really into the presentation.
Fast paced, cute and quirky the way Nintendo is so good at doing.
Yeah.
And just kind of a smaller game, so I'm excited about that.
It was definitely like, what is this moment, right?
Yeah.
But also really charming. I'm excited about it. I want to see more from it.
It looks like it's a nice game that you can just like pick up and play casually, which there aren't a whole lot of games that Nintendo's getting better about making games that aren't just such time commitments that you can just play casually on your commute or something like that. So that's nice to be able to have a game like that.
Yeah, a little pick up and play. Seems like you can play a
Exactly.
couple minutes of this and you still accomplish something.
Yes.
Now, interesting for me, it was the 2018 date and this is a 3DS game. Everyone keeps wondering, when is the 3DS going to stop getting support? Because everyone wants it to be just Switch. And I've heard a lot of things, they're going to finish this year and then kind of drop off 3DS. Well, here's one title announced in 2018 for 3DS. Not that it's the biggest title in the world, but they gave it time at E3. So I think it's an important title still. It's continuing on. I think 3DS is going to chug on for a little while. Smaller releases.
Which I love. I absolutely love. I love that about Nintendo, that they always support people who have invested in their company. You saw it with Breath of the Wild being available on Wii U for people that couldn't get the Switch, that weren't, because they're still not on shelves now. So people that couldn't get the Switch can still enjoy Breath of the Wild on their Wii U if they had one of those. It's so thoughtful of them to always support the people that have. It's smart on their part too, because there are so many units of the 3DS.
Over 60 million out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And with the 2DS,
Yeah, I was going to say the 2DS
XL's coming out this year.
So
Yeah,
that's
they're going to continue to support. I do think that you're going to start to see more titles like this rather than your big titles on 3DS, but that's fine. It's cool. I think it'll at least continue through 2018. Through the year, I think. I would not be surprised at E3 next year if we see some other new thing for 3DS. I don't think it's going to die as quickly as some people expect.
Even though the Switch is portable, it's still only got like, what, a 3-hour battery.
Depending on what you're playing, but
yeah. I mean,
like
if you're lucky, you get 4, maybe more. But it's, the 3DS, you get 6-8 hours easily.
Oh, easy, yeah.
So it's definitely...
And it's good for the kids, the younger generation that you don't trust.
I think that's who they're targeting too. With some of the releases, what you see them turning to, like we see Miitopia coming out later this year. We see Hey Pikmin, right? It's not Pikmin 4. It's a different kind of style 2D Pikmin game. This Shushido, Pokemon, all of those are very popular, I think, and can be successful with the younger age. Pokemon very popular. The other ones, I think, targeted at that. So I think that's pretty clear there. The 3DS is a little bit more focused on younger, where the Switch is where they expect the hardcore Nintendo fan to be.
It's thoughtful in a financial way because the 3DS seems to be more durable. So it's definitely what parents are going to go out and buy for their kids over the Switch.
I think so. Yeah, I don't think the sales of 3DS are about to fall off a cliff at all. I remember last year at Christmas time they were hard to find. I expect that will be the same again this year. I mean, there's a new Pokemon coming out, right? So people are going to want it. It's going to be in high demand with that younger audience in particular still. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to talk about for Nintendo's E3 today, their mic drop moment, no doubt about it, right, is Mario Odyssey. We had seen a little bit of gameplay, very small amounts of it before this.
Yes.
We had not really any idea of what the big idea with this was. We just knew it's a 3D Mario akin to Mario 64 and Mario Sunshine, so people were incredibly excited about that. It's their big fall game, that was no doubt. They blew the lid off with it here, right? They showed this big trailer that started out with the T-Rex tease, and people were like, what is this? And then he was wearing a Mario hat. I thought it was a cool way to start it because it already made you like, what is going on?
Yeah, how did that T-Rex get a Mario hat? Like,
did Mario turn into a T-Rex? What is going on?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then they really blew the lid off it. As I said, they go into the treehouse and showed a lot of gameplay. Several different times on different days, they were showing off gameplay of Mario Odyssey, and the big surprise thing was they'd never shown off before the idea of the hats taking over enemies, right? So you can throw your hat at various enemies and then play as that enemy, like Poltergeist takeover.
Just thinking of that, the endless possibilities that come to mind now that you start to... Because now you're thinking about how you fought all those enemies in the past, and now I can be Bullet Bill and just plow through an area.
Yeah.
It just seems like there's endless possibilities on how to complete different areas. It's not just you can do it this one way. Now, depending on who I choose to take over, this level can be completed in multiple different ways. Yeah, it really shows that. I think that level of experimentation that Breath of the Wild had, where it's like, it felt like the more you played, you could always be like, did you know if you did this will happen? Like the physics were so crazy, or what you could cook, and all these weird things.
Mario's got this
to the
too.
Imagination, a lot to experimenting, and a lot up to you on
so
how
much
you
to
want
wonder
to play
what could
the
be
game.
possible. And some of the enemies they took over really cool. Like there was this one stone enemy with glasses that they showed you could flip his glasses up or down, his like shades, and when they were on, he could see this invisible path that Mario couldn't see. So then, but he can't jump, so you have to look at it, remember where it is, switch to Mario, jump across it. Like some really cool things with that. So I think it's very exciting. I thought the concept was awesome. What a fresh idea for Mario.
Those are levels and stages that you'll play again and again differently, just to get a different experience.
And it's not even just enemies. I mean, they showed some things that I couldn't believe, like in New Donk City, the New York City looking area. He was throwing his hat on like safety cones, and then he would like bend them back and then launch out of it like a spring or something, and then use that. So he took it over just for a second just to launch himself in a direction. Yeah, catapult himself off. So, or he could take over a sewer lid and then kind of inch the sewer lid away and then jump down to the manhole, right? So just there's all kinds of things. I think endless experimentation possibilities there. Really cool, really exciting. The gameplay looks so smooth, and I think the hat thing really shows a good idea on Nintendo's part, because I think they've struggled in the past with how do we make power-ups work in 3D Mario games. If you remember Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, they had these temporary timed power-ups, or the bee suit you would lose when you went through water, because they didn't want you to have it all the time. It would break certain levels, so they didn't let it carry over to a new level. Like the 2D Mario games, if you get a fire flower and you don't lose it, you have it again in the next level.
Or like when you had the cape in Super Mario World.
And you take it everywhere.
It was game over, you won.
Yeah, if you lose the cape, you go back to a world where you can get another one and then go play the next level. Like, that's how you played those games, right? But 3D Mario has never allowed that.
Yeah.
And it's always been kind of a weird, why is my fire flower only lasts for 30 seconds? You know, it's kind of a bummer.
Restrictive.
Yeah, so now there's a good excuse. Well, you can only use this fireball power when you've taken over the fire bro, right? And then when you get rid of it, you don't have that power up anymore.
Exactly.
So I think it's a good answer to
that. When you take
that.
over the fire bro, you can't do the same things that Mario does.
Yeah.
So it's a good way of
it's good balance.
Exactly.
Requires strategy.
Yeah, so I think it's a great setup for the 3D levels. Some of the stuff so charming in this game. I mean, taking over like the Fire Bro and then watching how him and the Hammer Bro kind of hop around, right, rather than walk around. Just so much they thought about. Wacky, right? They showed off the amiibo for it, and it's Bowser in a wedding suit and Mario in a wedding suit, and then it's Peach in her wedding dress, right? It's just so different, you know, and it's kind of things I think people have always thought about, like, is Bowser trying to marry Peach? What's going on? Well, now they're saying, yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Right? And the bosses in the game are his evil wedding planners that you fight against. So just...
I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
That's
the little rabbits they showed off, that's what they said later, that they're the evil wedding planners, and they're like trying, they said all the levels are connected to it, like the biodome they showed is like where they're growing flowers for Bowser's wedding, so that's like why you're there. I just think it's really interesting. So much to do. They showed collecting moons.
The amount of, this is off topic, but the amount of weddings after this that are going to feature those as wedding cake toppers is
They're perfect for it. The little amiibo base, and pop it right on there, no doubt. But the goal in these levels, they showed collecting these green moons, right? So you can take down a boss or do some little objective, and that was cool too. It's not like Mario 64 where, hey, go in, collect a star, then it warps you back out, and then you can go in again. It's like they collected a moon and then continued on and collected another one and then went somewhere else and collected. You just keep exploring and having fun with it. So I think the setup looks really interesting. Definitely something fresh and different from Nintendo. That's the thing you got to give them credit for, is they keep reinventing these old franchises in ways that make them so exciting. Again, this doesn't look like any Mario before.
Exactly, building on the character in a way that doesn't, it never gets tired, it never gets old. It just gets more interesting.
Yeah, I thought it went over incredibly well. The excitement for this game, I think, really peaked after. They did a lot of different things, like the music they played with it, and Nintendo's whole booth. You saw pictures from it, all themed about Mario Odyssey. So definitely incredibly excited for it, I'll be honest. As much as I'm excited for SpiderMan and Assassin's Creed and some of these other big games from E3, this is the one that I'm like, I cannot wait to get my hands on Mario Odyssey. Yeah, it just showed so well. So very exciting from Nintendo there.
Now, do you think there's going to be a holiday Switch bundle featuring Mario?
You know, I wouldn't be surprised. They're doing the Splatoon 2 bundle, so I think it would only kind of make sense to do one at some point. My only question is, do they do that, or do they do... We've seen Nintendo do a move in the past where maybe they'll do a holiday bundle with Mario Kart.
Probably Mario Kart.
Because,
Mario
then
Kart.
they can say, hey, Mario's still on the shelf and you can buy it. Like, people are going to buy it. So it might be smarter to do Mario Kart because it's a port of a Wii U game and people might still want it.
I'm thinking Nintendo Switch with 1-2 Switch and Mario Kart is one of them.
Wow, yeah, maybe the 2-game thing, because at that point, how much is 1-2 Switch going to be selling on its own? It could be smart to up the value of a bundle.
Exactly.
Yeah, but It's possible. I think maybe right when it launches some collectible thing, but if I had to take a guess, and I don't know, but taking a guess, I would think their holiday bundle, I would lean Mario Kart. A little bit older game and then get people to buy Mario on the shelf.
Because Mario Kart, anybody can play this game.
Yes.
Anybody
absolutely.
wants to play this game. It's just
Young and old.
It's your Nintendo racing game. So I do imagine the Switch being bundled with the 1-2 Switch so that people that are opening it up for the first time can get a feel for what it can do.
Yeah.
And then move right into Mario
Maybe
Kart.
some Joy-Con though. We've seen that with several games, right? The ARMS had the yellow, Splatoon's got their neon colored ones.
Yeah.
I don't know what they do. You wouldn't think red and blue because that's kind of the standard neon Switch.
Yeah, I was going to say that's already been done.
They'll get creative somehow,
Yeah.
I'm sure. Leave it to Nintendo. I think there'll be something like that.
I'm hoping that with Splatoon there'll be like some green.
Oh yeah,
They've got the
it's gonna be green and pink.
Green and pink.
I like that.
Yeah, set of those, and then they have the Pro Controller also, which has the green and pink and looks awesome.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yep. Let's move on to and close out with then our what we've been playing section.
Well, I'm still playing the Necromancer DLC. I just got finished getting all the achievements.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to the hot fixes that come out tomorrow. A couple bug fixes and a couple item updates should make, Necromancer is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've heard some positive impressions from other people as well on the Necromancer, and heard it's pretty strong right now.
Oh yeah, it's everybody's really hyped about it, and Blizzard's showing they're going to support it. So.
Yeah, as Blizzard tends to do. I got to give them credit on that as they continue to support these games after they've been released and really community-focused, changing things, trying to make the community happy.
Yeah.
And we see that in Hearthstone. We see that in Diablo. We also see that in Overwatch. We know we have the big example this week. They showed off Doomfist with another free character coming to Overwatch. This is one that's been rumored since before Overwatch even came out. There was the trailers where they showed Tracer fighting with Widowmaker and trying to protect this gauntlet, which was Doomfist's gauntlet that was like in a museum now, and they were trying to steal it.
Yeah.
Reminding me of the Infinity Gauntlet when I saw that.
Yeah,
trailer.
absolutely.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, and so people have been excited about this character. There's been all these rumors of, hey, Terry Crews wants to voice this character for a long time. It didn't end up happening. It's not Terry Crews, but the character looks pretty cool. Not what I expected. I thought it would be a tank character, some big, hefty character, but it's actually, they're saying it's a damage character, lighter on health. He can kind of shoot from his one hand, little, bullet kind of spike things out of his hand, and then he has the big gauntlets, which his abilities come from, where he can kind of charge into people, knock them up. His ultimate ability is like this big fall from the sky where he smacks it, and he can kind of like target above and move around on the map some and hit people. So interesting. I think it's pretty cool. Again, something that these characters from the Overwatch community are so beloved. People really get attached to them, so I think it's very exciting. A new character coming to that game is
I think that's one
exciting.
thing Blizzard does really well is they get their fans and their community invested in the characters.
Yeah, and I think that comes from strong character design.
Yes.
That's the big thing. These are appealing characters. They look
Definitely.
cool. A lot of personality behind them. Very diverse cast in Overwatch. So I think that's well done. For me, what I've been playing, I've still been soaking a lot of hours into Persona 5. No doubt about it. A very long game. I think I'm getting close to 70 hours at this point, and I'm definitely more than halfway. That's about all I can say. We'll see how much it takes then, but enjoying it so much. A really fun game to sink time into. So not a complaint, just a large game, which I've been playing a lot of large games lately with Breath of the Wild and this, and I've still got Horizon on my plate. So good to see those big games. I've also taken some time to check out some much smaller games over this week, though, too. The 4th of July weekend, and holiday, not as much time, so it gave me a good chance to check out some smaller things. One of those I looked at was Kirby's Blowout Blast, which just hit the 3DS eShop. This is a smaller, full 3D Kirby game. It's like an action puzzle game. So the whole premise is you suck up enemies, as Kirby does, but you can't take their powers. You shoot them back out, and that's how you take out enemies. So you'll want to suck in like a big enemy or maybe 2 enemies to get a really large bullet that you're going to shoot out, right? They come out of Kirby's mouth like stars, and then you want to like wait for enemies to line up and hit 10 at a time, right, with the enemy that you shoot out, so you get higher points for taking out more. And they're small little bite-sized levels. They take maybe 2-3 minutes to beat, usually at most, and there are bosses, and at the end you get scores and you get little medals for if you didn't get hurt the whole time, if you got enough points, if you did it quick enough.
And I know you're trying to do that. 'Cause
it's
you love collecting those dragon coins.
Yeah, it's bite-sized enough that I do. I'm not gonna lie. If I like get hit one time or miss one enemy, I'm like, that only took 2 minutes to play through. I'm just going to do it again. I'm gonna try again. And it's addictive in that way. And I've made it through the first 3 worlds and done. Kirby's have World 1 and then World 1 EX, which is like harder levels, but still World 1. That's how you unlock that, by doing well in the other ones. So I've been doing those together. I do enjoy the EX levels, the challenging ones.
I know you do.
Those are fun. But the game, it's charming. It's only $6.99 on the 3DS eShop, so I think it's worth checking out. If you're a fan of Kirby and those aesthetics, it's fun little puzzle action game, like I said. You'll kind of find yourself really, the time one seems to be the hardest to get. Like, did you beat it quick enough? So I really find myself like, got to be as efficient as possible to get that. So I've been rushing through it. I want to make sure I don't move on till I at least have the gold medal on a level. There's like the platinum above that, which I've gotten here and there. But as long as I have gold, I feel content, because it's not always easy to do. So I've enjoyed time with that. I think it's worth checking out. Seems to be a good bit of content for the price on that one. And I enjoy the 3D Kirby style, so I think that's cool. Then the other one I've sunk some time into this week and actually played through to completion was Shantae Half Genie Hero on Switch. This is an indie game that released on Wii U, PS4, Xbox One before, and now came to Switch. And I had held off. I was interested in it when I heard about it back on Kickstarter. This was a Kickstarter success.
I haven't heard about this one.
So it's a 2D action game. You play as Shantae. She's had some other games, going back to, I believe the Game Boy Color was her first one.
Wow.
Yeah. But this premise is this genie who uses her hair to attack. Like, you whip forward with your hair, and then she unlocks different genie like belly dances to turn into different animals. And it sounds ridiculous, but you can turn into like a bat or an elephant or different things, and you unlock a bunch by the end. And so it's like a Metroidvania in that you can't get to certain areas until you have the elephant power, or you can't, until you have the bat to fly across a gap or see in the dark, things like that. So it really opens up. I thought it started a little bit slow. Took a minute to really get me kind of attached to it. But once I learned more and more of these dances and had different animal powers, I found that more fun to go back into the levels and start checking things out. It challenged you to, hey, you have to collect all these things to move on, right, to get the true ending of the game. So I did find that fun. It really kind of opened up and started to become addicting, because you're collecting these things and using the different powers, and you switch to an elephant, then you have to switch very quickly to something else, to a crab to go underwater, or a mermaid. There's a lot of cool things for it. Not a terribly long game. Took me about 6.5 hours to finish. Because it tells you right on the save file when you load it up. So about 6.5 hours. It's $19.99 on the eShop. So I think it's a fair value. I wouldn't say that I thought this was a great game, but I thought it was very good, solid, fun. The music in it, I'll say, is incredible. Very catchy. I found it stuck in my head after I was done playing and things like that. It's pretty to look at too. It's got that kind of hand-drawn style to it. It's not like retro looking. It's fully hand-drawn and animated. That was the big thing for them with their push with Kickstarter. And there's promise of DLC where you get to play as the pirate character, Risky Boots, who's the bad guy. There's DLC coming out where you play as her instead. So I think that looks fun. I may check that out as well. I thought the game was enjoyable enough to want to check out some more. But if you're looking for a 2D Metroidvania style game on your Switch, this is one I would recommend for that. One of the better of that style on it so far. So compelling there. I thought the music, like I said, maybe the strongest point. There are some funny parts too, like one boss in particular who was called the Squid Baron. I was laughing during his dialogue. It's on screen text and stuff, but there are some enjoyable things to find there, certainly. I know it's pretty well received, Shantae, overall. A lot of people are big fans, but I did enjoy my time with that. So I think those are both worth a recommendation. The price helps on those. Shantae, $19.99 feels about right, and then Kirby for $6.99 feels like a good deal, to be honest, for me. So solid there. I think that wraps up our show for this week. We did mention, I want to say, last week that we would talk about the Master Trials and Zelda this week, the DLC. I've checked those out some, but I want to spend more time with it, and we're going to make that actually a main topic next week rather than just what we've been playing. So we're going to give it its due time, I think, next week, because we never really got to talk about Zelda, and I think there's so much to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the biggest games of the year.
Yeah, no doubt.
The DLC definitely adds a new flair to it.
Yeah.
So it deserves its own little whole segment.
And we've been getting some information on what to expect from the next DLC
That's
as well.
true, too.
So yeah, we'll talk about that all next week. We will not miss it next time. That will definitely be a topic. So stick with us. Look forward to that. But for everything else, we thank you for joining in and listening. Please like and subscribe on our YouTube channel if you would. And join us again next week.
Have a good one.